So what we wanted to do, and we're talking about getting ready for the convention is, good morning.
Good morning, Shannon.
1 year in, here we are. You know, we've gone through the honeymoon phase of coming together as one association and learning how to make the industry stronger and facing new challenges. And each of you have a different experience, from the local experience with the chapters, from being involved in the committee, leading us and trying to keep us on track, and everything going on in government affairs. Just kind of share with those who don't live the association world on a day-to-day and month-to-month basis, what's been your experience? And so Frank, I'll just start with you. 1 year in, what do you think? You glad you popped the question?
Yes, no, absolutely. And you know, it's a question, Anthony, that I get from time to time from my peers, you know, in the industry around Seattle and around the state. So, because you know, it's a pretty big deal. But you know, to kind of go back and preface it a little bit, the Lodging Association was very successful.
Absolutely.
And to remind people of, we had a very strong leadership group, an accomplished staff, and I think we got a lot done. And the idea of the merger, particularly with all the headwinds we were facing in the state of Washington and still do as they get bigger and more challenging, and collaborating for years with the Restaurant Association, certainly the idea of getting bigger and stronger made a lot of sense to us. And so now going through this process for the last several years and a year into it, I think where we sit today, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's been great. I really do. I think that what the staff has been able to do and absorb lodging and get acclimated to, you know, our industry and the learning process and the branding process of Washington hospitality and everything else from the retro program, and working tirelessly yourself for the past, you know, couple of years to make this all happen, and where we sit today, I think it's been great.
Has there been a highlight of the past year that you're like, really cool to have been part of that, or you look back on this first year and say that was one of the things I'm going to remember for a while in that first year of coming together?
You know, for me, there's a lot of things that were really cool, I think, that happened over the last year, particularly as we sit down and talk with our board, which is a great board, and the leaders and our strategies. But I think the branding piece of it, when we celebrated the Washington Hospitality Association's launch, and you know, it's a new era. It's a turn the page, new chapter in the state of Washington for all of us, and it's pretty darn exciting to be a part of that, I think.
Yeah, the brand has been fun, and I think we're still in the early phases of that, of developing what's Washington hospitality mean, and what is it like to be involved in our industry, and talk about how much we want our workforce to succeed and how much we do care about our communities are involved in that. And trying to get that brand out there. It's kind of been fun from that point. Start fresh. New name, new idea, trying to educate the public about hospitality. It's been an interesting thing to watch people react to that so far.
Yeah.
How about the inverse of that? I know some of you are saying, what's Frank gonna say? He's not gonna sit up here and rip you apart, Anthony, but I'll tell you, I grew up in a great family. He knows I expect that, right? I live off how we improve each day. Looking back on the first year, what was the improvement we didn't quite get to, or maybe one of the higher frustrations of this first year that we still needed to strive to get to?
You know, and I think my peers can kind of share this a little bit. Our experiences, I think one of the concerns have been is lodging being absorbed by the Restaurant Association. The Restaurant Association is a much larger organization. You're dealing with mostly owners versus managers. Is the voice of lodging going to be lost? You know, that was a big concern that we had, and getting the staff acclimated to the lodging industry versus the restaurant is because there are some differences, right? So, and I think the issues that we're still working through a little bit is the staff learning about us a little bit more,
right,
including yourself. And we're on a call every week, and we get a chance to, you know, bounce back some things, and Anthony always has questions about certain aspects of what we do in lodging, and I know your staff does. So, you know, I've been through a lot of mergers myself. I know what it's like. I'm actually watching very closely the Marwood merger, and us at Hilton kind of like that distraction that they're going through right now. But it takes time, and I think the staff has really been engaged and really trying to learn and really doing a great job. But I still think they have a ways to go to learn, you know, all the things that we do on a daily basis in lodging.
See, I kind of like it. So Frank and I talk every Friday morning for about a half hour to 45 minutes, depending on what's going on with the week. And usually it's always, you use an acronym, well, I won't know what it is. And so you'll educate me and give me a glimpse into the life of what you're dealing with. And so I've really appreciated it. And thank you for your time this past year of getting me up to speed and being patient while I learned some of the details that maybe I didn't know because I just hadn't been immersed in it before. So thank you for that.
It's been fun.
Shannon, what about from your side? First year, you've been the epicenter. Seattle, I think, politically and growth-wise and economy. I feel like all eyes continue upon Seattle for what's coming up next. And dealing with the state association coming together, trying to support, how's that gone in your eyes in year one?
Yeah, I think it's been very successful. I think it's always very interesting. When you're in Seattle, you seem to think that the whole world revolves around you. So being even at this convention, it's so wonderful to sort of get the experience of all the hotels. But what we do know is a lot of the legislation that could be roadshowed to you is starting in Seattle. What has been particularly amazing for me as the president is really the government affairs and the political action that we have sort of begun. And the team that we have that is sort of stranded across our entire organization is fantastic. From a chapter position, we simply could not do it without the John and the Anna of the world. They literally keep us afloat, they keep us focused. So they are really the strategist. We will continue to look at the good of the order for the entire state, but certainly we're dealing with a little bit more wild local governing, but there is always genuine support at the state level. So for us, that gives us a sounding board, someone to bellyache to, gossip with, and really lay the plan for a better hospitality industry and a stronger unit.
How about the challenging side? If you could go back in time and slap me earlier and say, Anthony, really wish your team could have done this better or had a more thoughtful approach to that. Any lesson from this past year that we hope we carry forward?
I feel very strongly that it's sometimes the usual suspects. It's the same cast of great characters here. And it's neither easy nor difficult to carve out this time to be here. But I continue to ask myself, how do we truly engage our members so that we can all carry the water? Because again, my colleagues that are here from Seattle, we are literally at every single event together. So making sure that we're creating meaningful engagement and sessions and opportunities and engaging the membership so that we're all aligned and working together towards the goals.
I absolutely agree of how do we get everyone engaged in that. That's really strong. You mentioned John Lane and Anna Boone, and also we have Jillian as our communication person in Seattle. I think
How did I forget Jillian?
One of our, well, she just had her baby. Congratulations. So if you met Jillian, earlier this week. We're all excited for that. We've been trying to build a team to support Seattle and starting to build our team in Spokane and locally. Can you tell people a little bit about having the state association, having the local staff to support you in your efforts and how that's coming together? Is the communication strong enough between the leadership at the Seattle Hotel Association, our team, and are they taking feedback well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a strong bridge with John and Anna and Jillian. And again, not only are they sort of supporting the items that we put forth, but they're suggesting, gosh, had you not thought about this? And I'm happy to meet with this person and connect you. And so I think they are very connected and resource rich. I think what is an opportunity is really then to go back and say to each other at the different chapters, what are the initiatives that you're working on? Really just truly from a superstructure going back and forth to say, my guess is our top 5 things are all the same. And how are we leveraging those outcomes? So just a little bit more chapter to chapter engagement on progress.
If you want to get involved in Seattle, we also didn't mention our 2 area coordinators in Seattle. So I saw Kathy Fox in the room somewhere, and I think Michelle Holmes is here as well. So if you're in Seattle and you want to get involved and try to do a little bit to help spread the wealth, Kathy and Michelle are the two to reach out to and get involved with. Have you gotten the chance to know the air coordinators much, or has it been so political, really been doing more on the
No, I think there's been good engagement for sure. We've just been so focused on the current races and legislation with mayor and the city council and city attorney. That's been the near focus.
Yeah. Dean, what about Spokane? How does this balance?
Well,
what do you think from your view in the Spokane
I
city?
was a little bit surprised when you said the epicenter was Seattle, and I thought it was Spokane, but no, in Spokane.
I think politically we wish the epicenter was Spokane.
Well, we're working on that. No, the Spokane has had two really good chapters. The Restaurant Association and the Hotel Association have both been fully functioning, good partners. Definitely some interaction between the two, but I think what's really happened over the last year has been bringing those two groups together a little bit more consistently, and probably in the area of legislative affairs has been the big win for us. We were very reactive, and we would wait until something was almost fully formed, and then we would freak out and we would run and try to shape the future, the outcome of it. Now we're getting ahead of that, and it's been great. So I think that what John and the local government affairs folks have been able to do for us, we've got a new person now in Spokane, it's really been helpful in terms of getting out in front of issues instead of just being reactive to them. The other thing that clearly works is in a local community, especially like Spokane, I think that our local elected officials maybe overlook hotels a little bit because they're just not interacting with them as much, where we've got strength in numbers now with the number of restaurants, and everybody goes to restaurants. So I think that that's really helped add to our troops, add to our resources, and then of course the resources that we're getting from the state level have really been great to rely on. So it's been definitely a win for us. There are definitely opportunities going forward, I think, to continue to do more things together. But on the legislative side, we definitely are, we're always wary of what's happening outside of Spokane and things, ideas popping up in Spokane that catch us off guard. So this has been a really good opportunity to start with a matrix of priorities and work forward with that, which we didn't do before. So it's been great.
I thought it was really interesting. John and you and some others, you got involved in the hiring process of Toby, our government affairs person in Spokane, newly hired. What was that like, kind of participating in the hiring of that local representation?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, it was terrific. Thank you to you and to the entire team for giving us a voice in the process. And I think it's all indications are it's working out great for everybody. Toby jumped in with both feet. He's been very involved. I met with a couple city council people last week. They were very complimentary, and the nice thing is they connected immediately. Hotel, restaurant, Toby, and he's already meeting with them. And we've got some issues. They're not perhaps as dire as some of the issues in other communities, but it was great to know that he was already engaging with them, and he's been reporting back. I know I could see some of our Sterling Hospitality folks are here in the room, and Matt from Davenport is here. We all talk amongst each other and make sure that Toby's programmed with the right information. So he had met previously with Jody and Matt and myself, and I think he's doing a great job.
What about on the corrective side? So the positive, and we do appreciate it, but we got to always strive to get better. Looking back on the previous year.
Well, shame on me. And we had the Restaurant Association, or the WHA, really the local chapter, hospitality met at our hotel last week, and was talking about, with an attorney, talking about all of the new HR requirements and wage and hour things. And it just was, again, a reminder, an eye-opener to the difference in scale between the hotels and the restaurants, and the issues that, and I feel sorry for, quite honestly, a lot of these restaurant operators that have to deal with stuff that I can simply delegate to my director of finance and have them manage, or director of human resources, and they're doing all this stuff themselves. And so I think the opportunity is perhaps for us to become more aware and more sensitive to some of the burdens that they have to do. And we've just passed off, well, it won't be that big of a deal. Well, to them it is a big deal, and it's time consuming, and it's complicated, and they don't necessarily have the resources that a larger business might have with more team members and more corporate structure behind it. So I think our opportunity is to be a little bit more sensitive to some of their concerns and issues, and to hear that and work on that.
It's funny, I hear the same thing from the Spokane restaurants about understanding more what tourism means and some of the drivers and some of the things that they hadn't normally touched. So I think there's a willing there from the restaurant side in Spokane to really understand the holistic, which is going to make hospitality stronger. So I think the opportunity is exciting in that regard.
Well, we definitely, in Spokane, we're blessed with having a lot of restaurants, per capita, per square foot, per block of downtown. We've got great restaurants, and they really help with the tourism into our community, and people wanting to stay downtown, people wanting to stay in other parts of the city. We've got great restaurants, and so being good partners with them, and through organizations like Visit Spokane, we try to prop them up, give them a lot of exposure, give them the information that they need to be successful as larger groups are coming in. And again, it's a smaller, more isolated community, but I think the partnership between the restaurants and the hotels is really going to help everybody be more successful.
Shaiza, what's your perspective on how this has come together? And year one, you're not on the board, you're active in a committee, you're always involved in different issues when they help. What do you think, year one?
So I think that the success under your leadership and the board's leadership with paid family leave, I think everyone needs a standing ovation for that, because that was a national accomplishment. And I was at a high-hit trust meeting in early this year, and I had received an email that morning from someone in Seattle saying that Councilmember Gonzalez was having these hearing sessions on paid family leave in Seattle. And so I said to Anthony, I said, what do you know about this? And he said, go to it and say that we're going to handle it at the state level. I was like, okay. And he's like, we're going to get it done at the state level. And I was not showing it, but I was pretty skeptical. And so I went to it and I said, this is going to be handled, this is a great idea, because we had launched a small program as our company to offer paid family leave. But I know that if we can only do so much, most hospitality companies can do less, and just because it's just not financially viable, especially for restaurants, but certainly for individual hotels. And but it is a necessity. It is something, and the fact that you got ahead of it, got out there in front, I think is just tremendous. And then so I went to this meeting, and there were like 40 businesses at this meeting, all of whom said, we want paid family leave, but handle it at the state level. And then a week later, I get a call from Anna saying, can you testify to the Seattle City Council that you're supportive of this, but you want it handled at the state level? And I was like, okay, but what do I say? She's like, don't worry, we'll have testimony for you. And the next morning, I had testimony, and she said, okay, the testimony's at 9 a.m., I'll be there early, I'll check you in. And I didn't realize at that point how important it is to have someone help you check in early, otherwise you might not testify till afternoon. And it was just a very supportive process for me. And then next thing I hear, I'm getting all these emails about this is what we're going to go ahead with. And then you were there at the signing, Shannon, and at the signing with the governor, it was really tremendous. And it was very clear that it was the leadership of the Hospitality Association that got this done. It was really
our chairs and Julia Gordon are you?
Yeah, and they're over there.
Yeah. So
I see Julie and I see Anna and everyone over there, and I think it was just tremendous. It was very clear from the legislators that they were giving the credit to them.
Thank you very much. And to our GA team, thank you. That was a huge accomplishment. I'll take that.
So I think that was something that if it had been left to Seattle, it would have passed. And it would have passed in a way that could take a really great thing and just really screw it up. And I think that just getting out ahead of it and being proactive, because it was going to happen, but it's better that it happens in a way that everyone's working together and it works for everybody.
I think one of the things I'm really intrigued by how that process worked, and we started what we're calling the Futures Committee, of how do we see what's coming at us 3-4 years from now? Poll, survey, learn where the public's at, start talking to our members about our principles, what's valuable to us. I think the leadership you and others provided on paid family leave gave us this template for how do we not react with 6 weeks to go on an issue that already 75% of the public's against us on. How do we get way out in front and start talking about what we can live with and start doing proactive members in our business and proactive messaging so we end up in a spot like this. Because who wants to be against paid family leave or the next version of the labor issue when you have 75% of your customers on the other side?
Exactly. And legislation by referendum doesn't work.
No, it's a hatchet.
I think that's the big difference between today's association compared to maybe the past associations that we had. I mean, when we talked about the merger, it's really about the scale. It's about the influence that we can have, the impact that we can have together, working together through these issues. It's seat at the table, like with this situation, to make a difference proactively, and even things like resources to do polling and really find out where we are in this battle and how we want to proactively approach it, are things that were difficult to do in the past, but combined with the staff that we have, the resources that we have, it's much more proactive in virtually everything we do from a planning standpoint and a response standpoint. So it's
I think it's interesting,
big impact.
the differences between the hotels and the restaurants. It's pretty starkly different. A lot of hotels are owned from an institutional position, and so politically how we tend to engage can be quite different. But with restaurants, they're so close to the profit and loss line, and they're so engaged, and it's just a different vibration. And politically in Seattle, we created a political action committee, and just the way that the restaurant owners engage, they're just out there on the range, and it's fantastic. And it's that sort of thoughtful, long gaze that hotel owners have with the sort of the wild restaurant that I think really has a recipe for great success. Strategically focused, please.
It's funny you bring that up. I was before this idea really started coming to fruition, my counterpart in Rhode Island said, you need to go this direction. Because when the fire side of a restaurant and the live in the moment side of a restaurant gets together with the strategic and the long-term business thoughts that are trained in the lodging industry, it can be fantastic. And you're really bringing both sides of the world, and the political side where you have to move and you have to be urgent, but the first time you have to do that in a very smart, strategic way. I'm glad to see us coming together, because some of our counterparts, if you're ever in Rhode Island, ever have a property there, Dale's fantastic, but she did give me strong counsel on that. I'm glad to see it can work, because it could have gone the other way. Shaiza, what about the challenges? That's the high. Has there been a challenge in the year that you hope we can still overcome?
I haven't had any personal direct challenges, but I think that two areas, I think Frank alluded to staff education, and that's happening, and you're bringing on people, like I saw Sandra Miller here yesterday, and she may be here today, I just didn't see her, but bringing on people who have the relationships with the hotels, I think that's a good thing. I think I'm assuming that you're doing outreach to allied members to make sure that, because they might be allied members for hotels and they don't really fit with restaurants, so making sure that their needs are being met, because they've always been really good supporters of ours. I'm not saying that they're not. I just am throwing those two things out there.
It's still ways we can strive and continue to get better. I think you're right. I think we have to do that as we build relationships. I'll give you one of my highlights, and I'll ask a question. Tim, one of my highlights has been how fast the board and the committees have come together. I mean, I don't even feel like, whether it's at the PAC level of the Seattle Hotel Association or the board level, that it's two industries anymore. It's just hospitality. And I know from the broader public and the broader communication, we still need to make strides. But don't you feel like, if you took all the labels off and you made everyone wear the same shirt, so you couldn't tell who was wearing the suit and who was wearing the polo, would you even know? Doesn't it have a one-team feel?
It does now. I mean, it's funny you bring that up. I remember back 3 years or so, and we go to our first meetings to do this discussion. There's lodging on this side, and restaurants on this side, and it was definitely us and them. And of course, we had a lot of things to talk through and figure out. But yeah, no, today we go to the meetings, and you don't know, you couldn't really tell the difference between who's a restaurateur, who's a lodging operator. It's a great group of people, and they've really come together on a lot of issues. So the meetings are intense at times, as they always have been, but they're a lot of fun. Really, really good leaders.
Tim, what about on your perspective? You're leading the government affairs. For those of you who don't know, we have co-chairs in government affairs, one from quick service, one from full service, and one from lodging. And we threw you in probably one of the hardest jobs of trying to bring on the most contentious stuff, bring the industries together and lead us through it. I even know that you had some doubts early on of how are we going to have a voice, how are we going to be here. Looking back, has it been a good first year?
You know, I think it has. I would say the one thing that has been excellent is from the restaurateur side. Obviously, a lot of our issues are the same, but not all of them are. And the restaurateurs that we've worked with on the GAC and the government affairs, they have been, I guess, have enough foresight to recognize why this could potentially become a restaurant issue someday, or why it just matters to the hotel side, and have jumped in with both feet. So going back to the one team thing, it hasn't at all been, well, this is your issue, this isn't our issue. It's all been, okay, this is our issue together, let's tackle it. And of course, vice versa. So that's been wonderful. And we also have a fantastic GA team to work with as well.
In leading that group together and trying to get folks involved, what's been your biggest challenge? What's the area that you would push this team in this room the hardest on to improve as we move forward?
You know, I would say the biggest thing we need to improve on from the hotelier side, quite honestly, is just participation. When you look at the two sides of this association, with the restaurant side and the lodging side coming together, the restaurant side has a far greater number of properties and people to pull from for participation, so their numbers are very strong. The lodging side, however, we don't have as many because we tend to be bigger properties and things such as that. And so it's really important that we have a greater percentage of people to participate so the voice can be heard, so the opinions can be out there. So I would say that the biggest thing I would encourage each of you, or if you guys can go back and encourage folks at your place to do, is, you know, sign up for the GAC calls, be a part of that. We've got a great ambassador program they're rolling out. Anthony needs a lot of volunteers for that. And go to Shaiza's point, it's kind of largely a lot of the same people for a lot of things, and we need to diversify that because we have a lot of great minds in this room that aren't necessarily being heard. And I can assure you, each one of you, we do want to hear your voice, and it has equal weight and equal value, whether or not you realize it now. So that's something I would strongly encourage you to do, and you know, we can of course get you in touch with who you need to speak with about signing up for those things.
So Tim and Shaiza, from the committee role, I think one of the interesting cultures, not even industries, just associations, on the Historical Lodging Association, the board made most of the decisions. In the larger association that we're dealing with now, the board is making the 3-year out decisions, but the committees are making, Tim, you're making all the decisions on what our policy should be and where that's at, and Shaiza on healthcare, what our healthcare stuff should be like, and the different committees. Has that transition been odd to see so much power given at the committee level, and have lodging folks understand it's not going back to the board for approval? You truly have the authority at the committee level to make decisions and move?
You know, in my case, I think it kind of goes back to what I just said, is your voice really does matter. You know, you don't have to be on the board because, you know, Anthony's right, with the Lodging Association, if you weren't on the board, there wasn't a whole lot going on. I mean, our committees, it was kind of a running joke. If you were the person out of the room, you became the chair. And you know, that's not really how that was intended, but it did become a running joke because participation was hard to come by. And it's completely different in this association now, where we have heavy participation. Admittedly, some of the committees, we do need more hotel participation, but some of them we're doing very well. But that really is where the decision-making lies. So you can be involved in any number of ways, whether it be committee or board, et cetera, and actually have a voice that is going to impact your industry and your association.
Shaiza, what about your perspective on being involved in a committee? Have you felt welcome on the committee side? Has it been a big transition from what you were used to in the old world? Talk to us a little bit about what that's been like.
So I definitely feel welcome and engaged, and happy to see that, you know, this year, for example, with High Hit, that we've been able to bring hotel ratings up, so meaning prices down or it's flat. In a world where everyone's freaked out about healthcare, that's really good, because it turned out that hotels hotel employees were being treated as a higher risk than restaurant employees. So that's something that's, I think has nothing to do with me. It just is something that has happened over the course of the last year. So for those of you who are High Hit employers who use High Hit, I think that's going to be a good thing as our quotes come in the next few weeks. But for I think that from my perspective, it's been fine because I hadn't been on the board for a while, so I'm just the committee has allowed me to re-engage. So I think that's a good thing. But I would suggest that you announce what committees you're looking for people for, and everyone in the room who's not in a committee can sign up.
Well, one of my personal goals, we talk a lot about the voluntary pyramid. And thank you all for being a member. I'm assuming you're in this room, you're a member, and we appreciate that very much. But then we have different levels to get involved. And that's honestly one of the biggest challenges Frank and the executive committee and Tim and the executive committee have given me for the upcoming year is, all right, we've got the board running, the executive committee's running, the staff structure's there to support, get folks involved. And that's kind of the next level. And so the first level, Tim mentioned ambassadors. And so you still look at me like we're crazy, but we're trying to recruit a hotelier, just one hotelier per legislator, to talk about the industry, to talk about what's going on, to talk about what's really happening in their community. And yes, that's 147 hoteliers we need to recruit to make that happen, but we will. And one of my first missions was up in northwestern Washington. I think some of the folks from Bellingham are here. And we were able to recruit for those 4 legislative districts, one for every legislator there. So I think it's a little bit of elbow grease and getting out and contacting us. And then on the mentor side, finding people to manage to get involved with our students and our future workforce, and recruiting mentors to mentor each class that we're involved with, whether it's from Voc Tech or colleges or other things. So that's kind of level 1. And we'd love to talk to your area coordinator about getting involved. The next one is committees. And then the other part is I'm going to be looking for 60 lodging folks to be involved in different committees. And so what are they? They're the Education Foundation. That's one of our main pillars of how do we, and I don't know if we're going to rename it the Workforce Foundation or not, but how do we help our workforce succeed? I think as I've been walking around with you the next couple of days, the number one conversation has been, yeah, that sucks, but I can't find anyone to work. And where do I find a body, and how do I find good people, and how do I get good people to understand and get passionate and get trained? And that's really the emphasis of that committee, and it's going to have to be innovative, creative. We're so lucky to have 2 industry professionals in Sandra Miller. I think most of you met Sandra from her earlier time involved in WLA, and then Naja Hogander from the restaurant side to lead that charge. So we are looking for a couple strong people on the education side. Shaiza's involved in High Hit, which is really our healthcare policy, and Lord knows there's a lot going on in that world. From a government affairs perspective, we'd like to have 12 to 15 lodging folks that we can depend on that are on most calls. So the background is there when the time comes to make a decision. And Tim, I think we're probably at about 4 or 5 really active folks right now, and that's about in the right realm. So we're looking to triple that number in the upcoming year. And then everywhere else, if the time commitment's smaller, we have committees like finance, which is just once a quarter, and High Hit, everything in the High Hit, but board development and other areas. So you can make a difference in the association without really killing your time. And most of these things are available by conference call. So this is only going to work, and we're only going to have all voices heard if all voices come to the table. So if we're making it difficult or putting up barriers, please let us know so we can knock those down. One of the areas we're knocking it down, Dean, is in your area, and I don't even know if you and I have had a chance to talk about it. We are partnering with the Visit Spokane to put a teleconference room, really high tech, in there that we will share with Visit Spokane. So if you're in Spokane and want to participate in the committee, you can go to Visit Spokane, and we'll have 3 large television screens be immediately broadcasting, so it'll be like you're sitting in the conference room in Seattle without flying for the hour over, driving an hour to get 50
Driving
minutes
through the
downtown.
pass, yeah.
Right, but just simply drive downtown Spokane and still be active in the committee. And so between our offices in Seattle that we opened last year, and they have conference rooms there, and that, we're looking at developing ability for you to be involved from your community without not.
Well, that's great, yeah. And we had a situation last winter. I know we were going to testify, a few of us from over at the university building, and it snowed and there was ice and everything got shut down. So having another facility is great and will allow people to communicate, I think, a little bit better and take advantage of the technology. So that's great.
So, and WSU's also been a great partner with that. So Mark, I don't know if Mark Beatty's still in the room, but they've offered from their branch campuses in Everett and in Vancouver and Tri-Cities the same idea, so we can have this easy access network to make a difference in the industry.
Yeah. You know, just to touch base on the committee issue for just a minute, and I know that as you look at our board, the way it's made up and will be made up, it's not necessarily divided against restaurant and lodging. It's the board selection is really based on finding the strongest leaders that we can within Washington hospitality, whichever side they come on, that can really make a difference. in our industry moving forward. And those leaders often are selected from the leaders that are on the committee. And I'll reach out to all of you. I think it's really important for lodging to continue to have our strong leaders emerge through those committees. And so staying engaged and staying involved in your committees, staying active, emerging as a leader, progressing up to the board and influencing the state on both sides. The restaurant guys, as I said maybe earlier, they're owners. They're very driven for a lot of reasons. I have good friends that own restaurants, and I know that. And not that lodging isn't. It's a different type of deal when you're in management. But we don't want to lose our strong voice too. We want to make sure this merger continues to go well and benefits both restaurants and lodging for a long, long time. So really encourage everybody in lodging to as much as you can be and get active in the committees and emerge as a leader and eventually have a seat on the board.
We're trying to essentially build the AAA baseball program, right? Get involved, and then the strongest of our leaders can help us move forward and make great decisions from there. And I think we are blessed to have a great board. There's a couple topics I'd like to talk about, but I want to give you a chance. You have our leaders here. 1 year in, are there questions on what you may not be understanding of what's coming out in the world or in the association, or why haven't you seen this yet? Any questions or a chance to get clarity on where we're at today? Any questions? I'll let you think about it, and I'll come back to it. Oh, yes?
Does this particular meeting change at all in the future with the merger? Is there any opportunity? Is there any opportunity for this meeting to get some synergy from restaurant side?
Great question. Let me give you the starting point, and then Frank, I know we're talking about it tomorrow with the board meeting. I'll let you take it from there. From the ongoing staff's perspective in the negotiation, the lodging convention, from the negotiation point, and our standing of it was to stay lodging. And to make sure that lodging had an identity and a home and a place to talk about their issues and engage. And we've really tried to honor that. And so I've had a couple people say, well, where are all the restaurants? And why is this not the hospitality convention? Why is it still the lodging convention? And that was very intentional from the point of the negotiations of the two sides coming together. I know a couple of board members from Rono and Warren have said, is this still the right path? Frank, we're talking about this tomorrow with the board. What's your sense, or what are the questions we're asking ourselves?
Well, I mean, you kind of hit it. We talked through a lot of issues several years ago, and one of the things that continue to come up is there were a lot of people that wanted to stay, lodging and stay small, the networking opportunities, the synergies that we get, and we had a lot of good things going, and people enjoyed that. They didn't necessarily want to give it up. And so as we talked through the convention, we said, well, there's an opportunity for us to get together, network, have a few beers, have a few laughs. I mean, it's us, right? And keep that kind of going. But we weren't necessarily saying that it needed to be that way forever. We wanted to give it a chance to evolve and see where it goes. And so, at the board meeting tomorrow, we're going to kind of break out in our session and talk about that a little bit and get everybody's insights and opinions of where they believe this convention should go. I think from what I've heard around the room this week, it's been, where are the restaurant people? I've heard that a lot, I think, and so that gives me some sense of where I think, we may want to go.
Well, we've got a room full of our peers. Mm-hmm. Maybe if we framed a question, we could bring feedback for tomorrow. So let me see if I can do this on the fly.
Sure.
From your perspective, and we'll just do this by show of hands, do you like having this be for lodging and really be about lodging and lodging focused? Or would you like to see the other sides of hospitality have the doors be open more for them and make it broader for hospitality than we have to date? Is that a fair way to frame the question? Should I reframe that?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, so show of hands. Warren's raised his hand. He doesn't even know which side I'm asking first. Yeah. He's like, yes!
All of the above.
So we're going to start with $1,000 donations to the Education Foundation. Warren's in. No. The first question is, I'll do do you like to keep it the way it is? My second question, would you like to see us open the doors more to the rest of hospitality? So how many people would like to see us keep this lodging focused, lodging based, lodging camaraderie, the way we've seen it to date? Show of hands for what we have today. Okay. And then how many people would like to see us open the door more to restaurants and the other sides of hospitality?
Okay.
Okay. And how many people wish they were not here right now? Can just raise their hand and show me the bird? Okay. All right. We can go from there. That's probably pretty good feedback.
That's pretty good.
They're great question. Thank you. Ron. Ron's got
Is it working? I just want to make a comment too, because you asked the question.
Yeah.
And a raise of hand is fine, but I was actually talking to another gentleman yesterday, and he asked that very question, a hotelier. Why are we not doing this with the restaurant? And I've actually mentioned it at our board meetings that I think that this is something we need to do, because I'm all about, hey, if we're in a board meeting and you talk about restaurants, I'm the first guy that says, and hotels. And I really think if we're going to be a team of people and an organization together, as much as I love hanging out with all these hoteliers, I really think that it needs to be us as a group, because if we're going to be an organization, the association, hospitality, then let's make it hospitality and include the whole picture, not just part of it. So, and I'm just going to go on record, I was actually one of them that voted no to the merger, but since this merger has happened, I'm so on board with it. I think it's a great thing, and I think we're going to do great things. But if we're going to be an organization, let's be an organization together and not separate. And you know, as much as I love this, I think we need to do it together.
Anthony.
Well, as well, too, there's no reason we can't have different tracks, which we did yesterday.
Right.
We had multiple tracks, 3 tracks at one time. You know, distribution may not be interesting to a restaurant. It's critical to us, and they can go and, learn about new fryers or whatever.
Or Uber Eats.
Thank you.
Whatever the hot topic of the day is.
Okay, how about Uber Eats? And
Uber Eats. Yes, there you go.
Luckily, right now it's just lodging, so
Yes.
we're good.
Keep that in the room. But I do
to go on the
think
restaurant track.
I do think that it would certainly there's a lot of overlap and a lot of opportunity to probably do things together, and then there's topics that are really going to be more relevant to one group or the other, and I think that it's good to have some different tracks, good to have different sessions, but an opportunity to and don't forget, most of us are also in the restaurant business as well. We have 2 restaurants in our hotel, and issues that are important to restaurants are part of our business every day.
I think, in my opinion, it's timing. I think it was right to have it just us this year. But there is such amazing overlap. So, again, it seemed that the audience and the group was really in favor of an inclusive experience. Our vendors overlap, our employees overlap, our issues overlap. So there's strength, and we are one association. So I would think that believably we could go forth with specialized breakouts and fryer topics.
Yes, exactly. Freezers and
We
fryers.
just got to wait out fryers on the thing now that we've done that, so we'll figure that out.
I mean, what I want to say is, if you were to poll this room 3 years ago, it would have been a very different show of hands. And I think that really is a testament to what everyone in this room has done, what the staff has done from the restaurant side, coming over to becoming the Hospitality Association. And I can tell you, there was constant slapping of their own hands when they would say Restaurant Association out of habit. So the fact that I think this room now is ready for something a little more inclusive of everybody is truly a sign that what we talked about earlier, we've become one team, that effort has been there. So I think the timing is good.
So let's. I think we covered that one. Let me switch other topics. That while you have us up here, chance to kick our butt or get clarity or other questions. What have you been struggling with, and you're wondering if we're doing anything about it or where it's headed, or other areas?
Cindy.
Yeah, I can't. Yes.
It's me. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I couldn't answer the question, and I don't know how many. I remember when I was involved with some of the conversation, a lot of the merit to bringing the 2 groups together was this vast network of ACs that were out there. I've talked to a couple of hoteliers that say that they've never heard from an AC yet, and if somebody was hired to be their AC, they don't stick around. How many ACs are there? How many should there be? And what should they be doing? Because I've never heard from one either.
Fair. So let's own some of those moments. And Stephen is our director of membership. Stephen, if I start saying things and you need to shut me up, just raise your hand like, no. We have 11 area coordinators around the state. So in the perfect world, we'll all have an area coordinator. We did have some turnover this year, and we have had some difficult time hiring. So unfortunately, in this past year, there's been communities that have not been covered. Specifically, East King County is one of our areas that's been open the entire year. And I believe Southwest, Stephen, just got covered last month and a half. Is that fair? I don't see where Stephen's at in the room. Is that accurate? There you go. Also, I think we're really trying to learn on an area coordinator. As we strive to get better, Lex, what's the Japanese word that you use that you just say really describes our culture? Is it Kaizen, constant improvement. I think a lot of times we had, in the past, we brought in folks who really had entrenched sales and customer service backgrounds and then tried to train them on the association world and truly supporting our membership. And I think one of the things we're trying now is let's bring people in and train the customer service and the programs first and worry about sales second. And so we brought in what we're calling area associates, and 2 people this year, one in Southwest and one in Southeastern Washington, who their first job is to understand the association in the first couple of months and then get to know the existing members. Before we start growing the association, let's take care of the ones we have. And so hopefully, Cindy, if next year, if we're still having that criticism, that means that we've really let you down. And we're really going to strive to have met with everyone at least once this year. And between phone calls and other opportunities, hopefully you'll see a relationship between your area coordinator and most people in this room. But while that's our goal, I can't say that we got there this year. It's an area where we need to keep pushing. Stephen, is that fair? Yes. Any area that you'd redirect or you'd want to further clarify? Stephen's our Director of Membership, Stephen Sweeney.
Pleasure being here, thank you.
There's a mic behind you if you want it.
No, I agree with you. As we go forward this year, we have made a lot of changes, and we, at the beginning of next month, we will have all the positions filled but East King, but we'll be covering those with the area associate. So this will be one of the first times in a long time that we've had close to a full team. So really looking forward to getting out there and getting to know the members, and we are focusing more on the members we have to engage them more and to get to know our members more before we do expand, like Anthony said. So thank you.
Thank you. So the general model is each area coordinator will be assigned between 175 to 200, no more than 300, but the reality is about 260 hospitality decision makers. And that we call them relationships in the office. We expect them to have a relationship and it's not a membership. This is how do we make this industry stronger together? How do we help you succeed? And that's what we're striving for. Good question. Thank you. Other questions? I want to talk about a couple things.
Anthony, we got one here.
It's hard for me to see with the light, so someone help me out. Tom.
Anthony, on the state level, we have, on the state level, we have, of course, upcoming this year, we heard from the attorney about the minimum wage and the changes over the years. And then we have a lot of cities and municipal governments that, like Seattle, that are doing their own thing. Has there ever been a move to see if we can just get the state to say, locally, there shouldn't be any other changes in wages? In other words, a state minimum wage program again? Because I get worried about these little pockets and checkerboards of different wages and how that affects the operators.
So Tim, jump in. This is your area, and then I'll have your back if you need. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely there's been efforts. And this goes back to even before the forming of this association when we were still just an individual lodging association. We've had Senate bills that never made it to the floor. Myself and Tom Keogh went down and testified in Olympia. And to be candid, what happened at that testimony, a lot of politicians from Seattle showed up, and it never made it off the floor, or never made it to the floor, pardon me, never made it out of committee. So there's been efforts, but you have cities that are against it, unions that are against it, so the opposition to have something preemptive on the state level has been extraordinary, which is one of the reasons we were so happy we were able to make that happen for the paid family leave, because we've tried with things like minimum wage, and it's literally been a bill killer every time. It's not been a topic of even maybe we can consider it. It's been an absolute bill killer. So yes, there's been a lot of effort every time we tried to do that, but no success so far.
And there are advantages and disadvantages. Speaking for Spokane, something that might seem really reasonable to King County, where all the population is, might be cost prohibitive. I mean, this minimum wage has hit us much harder than it's hit people in the West, in the King County area. So we would like to have things, some reasonable things at a statewide level so that we're not spending a lot of time at the local city councils arguing over issues and policies, but at the same time, it has to be something that works or is indexed for different communities within the state, because the economics are totally different from region to region.
And I would point out, so I think the answer is, if we could wave our magic wand, having 36 counties and 400 cities having different rules and regulations and different approaches just isn't good for a business climate. It doesn't help economy flow. It doesn't help people get from point A to point B and grow dreams. I think we all agree with that. But I think I haven't found that magic wand yet where I can just wave and make these things happen. So I think the best we can do is in the conversation take advantage of moments. In paid family leave, we were willing to be very progressive. We were willing to do things that were groundbreaking. But we were only willing to do it if there was a single state format. So in paid family leave, we said we'll go and do things no other state's done in a way that'll work for everyone, but only if preemption is in there. And so I think from our standpoint, our GA team is clear. We are watching for windows, but there's a difference between desire and planning businesses. And I think in the short term, with majorities in place and where things are at, it's a big ask at best. I also think, Dean, you brought up something very interesting. We're going to be rolling out some industry benchmarking over the next couple of years. We're starting with the restaurant side, but we do intend to roll it into the lodging side in the upcoming year. But we're pointing out the benchmarking is so different in our 8 different economies in the state of Washington. And so we're tracking Spokane, Eastern Washington outside of Spokane, Clark County, Clark, Cowlitz, and Skamania as an economy, rural Western Washington, Thurston and Pierce as an economy, Snohomish and Northwestern Washington's economy, and then Seattle by itself, and King County, not Seattle. And we're trying to see what's happening here. Because the median home of Seattle is now what? $40 million? Wow. And in OMAC, or some of these smaller communities, there's still really nice median homes at $150,000. And to say they're all the same, and they all have the same economic drivers, I think that's maybe a 1950s way of thinking, that our economies are changing radically as we go. How do we get consistency, but not cave everyone in and put all communities at risk because Seattle needs something the rest of the world can't afford? And so I think that's where we're going to have good leaders in the room telling us where we've gone too far and what the right thoughts are, and so our team has the right guidance, because these are going to be really tough decisions. And from what we're seeing in polling, I always want to tackle a member who also want to say, well, it's not going to get any worse. I'm like, oh, God! Because that's when the next morning we wake up and read something in the paper and there it goes again. This challenge isn't over. And I think we're going to continue until we really see a change in dynamics, this path we've been on for a while, until things really change. And so we have to stay vigilant. Other questions? Ron?
One thing I wanted to say, I'm on the Government Affairs Committee, and you should join. But basically, in a lot of ways, the hospitality industry has been Sisyphus holding the rock on the hill, and we've been resisting. We've been holding, and we've been doing our best to progress. So we're trying to push this boulder over the mountain rather than laying down and letting it roll over us. It has been a battle. And basically, we have a hill climb that's coming up. And the more people that can attend and express just how important this is, and it's like, for me and for many people, this is a family business, and this is multi-generational business. And it's not something where we just won the lottery and all of a sudden we should be giving it away, right? So it's a difficult battle, and it's hard to convince people. And it's hard to give people perspective on the timeline and how much has been invested into our businesses, our heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears, right? So, it's like we need voices. We need people that will stand up and help us push this rock, because, it's like they keep piling more and more onto us. And it's like at this point, any victory that we've achieved has been a great victory for us. But, a lot of the victories that we've had is just resisting.
And I would say, Tim, I know we're going to be in government affairs in a little bit. If you get a chance to talk about ambassadors, one relationship can make a world of difference. You've all had one relationship that brought in a major party to your hotel, and it was just by being kind and open-hearted and talking to folks about where you're at. Next thing you know, that relationship had a side benefit. If we all establish one relationship with a legislator, I just think to tourism, which Andy and Mike are going to talk about a little bit later. We had one legislator who literally blocked to pass the bill a couple of years ago, and we developed that relationship. We talked about solutions. We didn't give up on that legislator. The next year, that legislator became a hero, and all of a sudden we had momentum in the House. Now, the Senate became a problem. I'm going to set that aside. But the point is, if we all just take one legislator and follow Ron's example, and we all build that trust, this is a great industry who really understands hospitality and solutions. We can get there. I'm supposed to wrap it up here, and so what I'd love to do, this time I'll come this way. We're on stage 1 year from now. It's our 2-year anniversary. I know this year's paper. Anyone know what the second anniversary is? Is that diamonds?
Is that one cotton?
Yeah. What's that, copper?
Cotton?
Cotton?
Might be cotton.
Yeah, okay.
If not, it works for me. We all have towels.
All right, yeah. So, a year from now when we're celebrating our cotton anniversary, what would you like to say has been your biggest accomplishment in each one of your areas? That you could say, our industry got stronger in our area. Here's what I would love to say has been my highlight when we sit on the stage next year.
I think from the GA perspective, if we've moved to a point to where we can have some anticipation and foresight to what's coming next, so we can help drive it like we do with paid family leave, it's a lot better situation and viewpoint than just having something thrown upon us. So I think if we can get to that point, if we can become more strategic and more forward-thinking, that's going to be our real win.
Shaiza, what do you think? What would be your...
On the health insurance side, well, my low bar is that we still have health insurance. But given that we seem to have accomplished that for this year, I think to be able to have hotels and restaurants around the state say, oh, wow, this product is something we can do to meet all of our employee requirements and what the federal mandates are, whatever they are.
We didn't get to talk about the great accomplishments in High-Hit for the last 2 years. We're up, how many percentage of points have enrolled lives? It's massive. Ken, do you remember off the top of your head?
No, I don't, but I think
Ken, is it 35%, Victoria? It's whatever it's been, your leadership's been fantastic.
There's stuff like that we're not even using in our company to the fullest extent, but like teledoc, like that you can just call the doctor and do all that, and you don't have to go in. If it's something that you know what's wrong, you just need someone to agree with you and give you a prescription or whatever the case may be. Right. So.
Dean, a year from now, what would be your highlight?
I think my desire would be that we would have good, refreshed leadership at the local levels and people sharing in the engagement so that we're not relying on the same people all the time, but we're diversifying and building a network of people to grow into positions where they can be involved in various aspects of it on both the restaurant and the lodging side, and working together, engaging with each other, and coming up, because we have the benefit of stability, which I think is great, but it also means the same people end up doing the same thing over and over again, and putting a succession plan in place where we can continue to grow people and learn in this new environment of cooperation and engagement between the different entities, I think would be helpful. That and Fryer technology.
Fryer technology.
Yes.
Oh goodness, I think success a year from now really is political. Sometimes we sit around and we'll just lament at what has been legislated at us. And often we're getting involved really past that 80th percentile, and we're like, let's get a campaign and let's get our $10,000 hard at work. And that's too late. And we have to get engaged and we have to push the rock over the edge. And sometimes it's just about understanding the issues. I think that sometimes we not only don't understand them, we're not aligned. And so we haven't talked through them. And so by the time the item is so hot and so in front of us, it's nothing but reaction. And so really plotting out something very strategic and making sure that we're engaging all of our different communities so that we understand how does it differ in Thurston County? Because it is coming to the roadshow near them soon. And if we're not thinking of something, we can't have a playbook for everything, but we certainly should have a central strategy. So I think a little bit more strategy indexed out and returned back so that we can attack it from more of a holistic position.
Frank, you wrap this up. A year from now, you'll have just completed your chairmanship and been the first official chair, right, of the new association. And you'll look back and say your legacy is what? What do you hope to be able to say in that speech?
Well, certainly we want to get movement on our objectives that we set, right? The strategies that we have, the goals we have, and we have a lot of them. I don't know, so we'll get into that today, and the pillars of the association. But I think for us, it's to be considered probably one of the most influential associations in the state, and to really get some wins. You know, it's been a tough battle for us over the last several years with minimum wage and other issues, and certainly in Seattle. And you know, the Family Leave Act was, I think, a start of something to where we can influence the outcome more. And we have to slow down, you know, these disruptors that are coming from legislation, both in all of our communities. And so to be really ahead of that and to slow down those issues and have a seat at the table and get some wins and be considered, you know, one of the best, most influential associations in the state of Washington, I think would be a good place to be next year.
Sounds like we've got some marching orders. Thank you, your leadership, and everyone who's on the board and on a committee. Just thank you so much for making this first year what I do consider a success. It's been an honor to be a part of, so appreciate it very much.